For the last 19 years, I've been helping people and families relocate to Columbus, Ohio. But I've got to be honest, not everybody decides to move here. Columbus is just not going to be the right city for everybody. In this video, I'm going to break down the top 4 reasons why people choose not to move to Columbus, Ohio. Make sure you stay to the end because the last one is a huge health concern, which is very prevalent here in Central Ohio and can even be a bigger concern if you have children. And it all starts right now. So let's go! If you're new to my channel, my name is Mark Van Stein. I make videos about real estate and what it's like living here in Columbus, Ohio. I cover things like the pros and cons of living in Columbus, the best schools, neighborhoods, areas, cost of living, and everything you need to know about living here in the capital city. My goal is to give you, the viewer, a really good understanding on what it's like to live here. If you're trying to learn more about Columbus, make sure you hit that subscribe button because I'm making new videos every week, not only about Columbus, but its many suburbs as well. Most importantly, if you're thinking about moving or relocating to Central Ohio, make your life a little easier and let me and my team help. I'm a full-time REMAX Realtor, and like I mentioned, have been helping people with their real estate needs for almost 2 decades now. I'm actually a 3rd-generation realtor. You want to find a realtor who you can trust, who will not only help you find a great home, but more importantly, make sure you make a good investment. Please don't make a huge mistake on one of the biggest investments you'll make in your lifetime. You can give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email, however you want to reach out. I'm pretty easy to find. Well, enough about me. Let's break down these reasons. Number 1 is the cost of housing. I have so many clients when they start to consider moving here, think that Columbus is a small city. They're going to get this great deal on a house. I'm moving to Columbus, Ohio. Everything's going to be so cheap. I'm going to get this huge house and all this land for next to nothing. Then reality starts to set in and they see how really expensive the housing is here. Now, this isn't always the case depending on where you might be moving from. If you're moving from Boston or California, Columbus might seem like a great deal. It's like, yeah, I just hit the jackpot. But in reality, housing across the board is pretty expensive, especially if you're moving from a western state like, let's say, Texas. I just relocated a client from Chicago and he was shocked at the housing prices here. He lived in an area of downtown Chicago called River North, which, if you're not familiar with Chicago, is this hip and happening part of the city. And he could not believe the prices. He was like, I would pay that much in a Chicago or Manhattan, but there's no way I'm going to pay that kind of money in Columbus, Ohio. Again, the reality is that housing here is very expensive across the board. As you move further out into the suburbs, you can get a little bit more for your money, but it's still very, very pricey, especially in the better school districts. Number 2 is taxes. To go along with the high cost of housing is the high property taxes we have here in Columbus. The property taxes in Columbus are high, period. But at least when you're out in the suburbs, a lot of that tax money is going to a good cause, our school systems. We are very fortunate that the Columbus suburbs really have some good public schools. Franklin and Delaware counties, which make up a good portion of Central Ohio, adjust their taxes every 3 to 6 years. Unfortunately, the values in Franklin County have just been adjusted upward around 25%. That comes out to about 9 to 11% tax increase per year. I've already gotten calls from some of my past clients asking me how they can dispute these new valuations. If you are purchasing within the next few months, it's very important because these new tax values won't be displayed, and because we're in the rears in taxes in Columbus, you want to make sure that you are credited the proper amount at closing. If you're looking to purchase a home in Columbus and worried about the taxes, there are some really good tax estimators on the Franklin and Delaware County Auditor's site. You just plug in the address and the new value of the property and it will give you the estimated taxes with a complete breakdown of how they're being distributed. Number 3 is the weather. The weather in Columbus is pretty crappy. We get hot and humid summers and we can have pretty miserable winters. Sometimes we don't even get 4 nice seasons here in Columbus. We go from summer to winter, then back to summer again, with no fall or spring in between. The summers in Columbus can get pretty brutal. The temperature can get into the high 90s and we get our fair share of humidity in July and August. Now, it's not like Houston or Atlanta humid, but the dew point gets pretty high. The winters can be equally terrible in Columbus. Columbus is in this huge lake bed, so we don't get a lot of snow. It gets pushed to the north and south of us. What we do get is a lot of freezing rain and 35-degree days, which in my opinion are much worse than getting snow. I would much rather have the ground frozen with some snow on it than have this freezing rain mess we often have to deal with. But the absolute worst are the cloudy days. As I look out my window this morning, it's a dark and dreary overcast day. And you'll have a lot of that in Columbus. In fact, Columbus is like the 4th or 5th most cloudy city in the country. And it can get a little depressing in the wintertime, especially when you don't see the sun for days at a time. This spring, I had this family in from California who was thinking about relocating to Columbus. I had this tour that I do for people who are thinking about moving here, and we're out driving around, checking out the city. The husband leans over and asks me about the weather. Well, it had been overcast and a little cloudy for the couple of days that they had been here. And I said, listen, this is very normal for this time of year. One thing about me is that I'm completely transparent. I'm going to tell it like it is. Well, the next day they called me and said they had decided not to move to Columbus, that there's no way they're going to be able to handle the overcast days here. Lastly is radon, and this is a big one. If you're not familiar with radon gas or its effects, I suggest that you do a little bit of research on the internet and even look it up at the EPA's website. Radon is an odorless, colorless carcinogen gas which is very, very prevalent in central Ohio. It's actually the second leading cause of lung cancer. Radon is created by the breakdown of shale and slate, and as that rock breaks down, the gas is released and kind of permeates up through the earth. Remember earlier in the video, I mentioned that Columbus sits in this huge lake bed. This radon gas comes up through the earth and then gets trapped in our houses, especially in basements, which are very prevalent here in Columbus. Now, the EPA says that the radon levels need to be below 4.0 to be safe. And I'll tell you that 98% of homes I deal with, they have high radon counts if there's not already a system in place. That's how common it is in Columbus. The highest counts being found in the basement where there's less natural air movement. Now, the good news is that if it is high, you can put a radon mitigation system in. A radon mitigation system is going to run between $1,200 and $1,500 and vent that gas to the exterior of the house. What they do is they come in and they seal the basement and they put a vent in which will vent the radon gas above the gutter line outside. The biggest takeaway I want you to get from all this is that if you're purchasing a home in Columbus, Ohio, you definitely want to have a radon test done during your home inspection. There's a lot of different opinions out there about length of time of exposure and how much exposure, but if you've got a finished basement, or like I said, children who might be spending a lot of time in a finished basement, you just want to make sure you do your due diligence during that inspection period. Well, hopefully I didn't freak you out too much. Columbus really does have a lot going for it. You just need to be aware of some of the downsides if you're thinking about relocating or moving here. And like I said, I like to be completely transparent. That's just my personality. If you're still thinking about moving here and are looking for an honest, transparent real estate agent, please reach out. You can give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email. Like I said, I'm pretty easy to find. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of my new videos on what it's like living here in Columbus, Ohio. Until next time.